Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. We're about to jump into a question-answer period, but first, let me remind you guys that if you like some of our logos and our cool graphics, you can also find those same graphics and logos on a lot of cool apparel. Not to mention, there's just some pretty cool stuff. One of my favorite, actually, is under gift packs. There's a pretty cool Korean t-shirt stuff. It has Korean letters, and Korean's pretty awesome. So, if you want to check out any of the cool Major League Gaming apparel, go to mlgproshop.com. There's a lot of cool offers and deals, so feel free to check that out. But now, let's jump into the question and answer portion. So, actually, before we get into any questions, one thing I want to do a brief series overview, right? So, for you guys who watched that series, Mana won the first game by defending that great roach rush, and Bly took games 2, 3, and 4, all with a similar theme in that he used weird unit production timings, right? A lot of the games he would cut drones really early, so he would negate any economic advantage he would have over the Protoss. Typically, Zerg likes to get a economic advantage going into the game, so he wouldn't get that. And he also wouldn't tech aggressively, so he wouldn't have those power units, Infestors and Mutas, and he got Mutas a couple games, but most of the time he didn't get the Mutas or the Infestors or the Swarm Hosts. What he really did is he got out Hydronus, and then because Mana was going for these 2-base timings, and is not used to unit count that fast that early, just totally shut down those timings before they got off the ground. And then while Mana was trying to scramble to recover, then Bly would transition to more drones or Muta transition or whatever it was. But it was all the same theme of an oddly timed Hydronus army arriving to shut down an aggression before it can even get off the ball. Kind of neat little technique Bly used. And if you missed those games, check them out at youtube.com/official MLGSC2. But now, let's do a few questions. So, first question is going to be from Petrie T. It says, what are the most cost-efficient early-game harass units in Heart of the Swarm from each race and overall? And how do they change as the game progresses to the late game? So, let's do it race by race. So, Zerg, what type of harass units do you have? Well, you've got, I mean, you can do some funny stuff with Burrow now, really, but not really. Basically, you've got 2 harass units for the most part with Zerg. The Mutalists are exceptional harass, and what's actually, I consider, almost a harass unit is the Swarm Host. Because what the Swarm Host does, it doesn't produce Locusts fast enough to be like in a straight battle, like a constant battle going on, it's just pounding at your opponent. What it does is it produces a small free army, and it goes and does some damage. And I think it's that harass, because one Locust wave isn't going to kill your opponent, most likely. But what it'll do is it'll do damage. And so your Swarm Hosts just jump around from location to location, so your opponent can't find him and can't approach him. And it keeps sending waves of Locusts, and each wave does some damage, does some damage, does some damage. And it's just consistent, very cost-efficient harass. It's not multi-directional harass, and it's not going to, like, each wave might not kill a ton. And it can only go on ground routes, so it's not going to be, like, the scariest harass to defend, but it's a free harass, which makes it insanely cost-efficient. Well, I mean, there's opportunity cost, but you're not losing units while you're harassing. So it's a really, really great harass for Zerg, really free, and it's good at all stages of the game. Like, they're unless you're playing Terran, they have like 1 billion tanks, or they have a giant Widow Mine field that they're cycling through so there's always fresh Widow Mines. It's always going to be cost-efficient, so it's an amazing type of harass. And of course, Mutalisk you've seen time and time again, but Zerg doesn't have anything right off the bat. It's all air tech. Now, going on to Protoss. Protoss has the Oracle, is the new ultimate harass unit. We've seen how fast it kills workers. Tide used against Stefano, of course. Parting dominated Fantasy. I think it was in Game 2 of that series with the Oracle. But we've also seen it shut down, like in today's match, Zake versus Thor's in Game 1. So Oracle, insane damage output, very low life, and very low range. So it's more of a surprise harass unit. You come in there, if they're not ready, it does damage. If they are ready, it does nothing, right? As opposed to things like Zelt Warpins can always do damage. Phoenix Harass can always do damage. Very durable, good range, good movement, good detection, but you're not going to win the game with a couple Phoenixes harassing. But it's a nice, slow and steady, progressive harass. I prefer Phoenixes, and my favorite harassing is Protoss. Of course, later on in the game, DTs can get good, as you can afford to really use them pretty aggressively to harass. And, I mean, there's Warpins as well, and those are pretty much the main tools. Terran, though. I think Terran has the best harass potentials in the game. Early on, we've seen Hellbat drops be very effective. Of course, they just nerfed the drop ability that slightly. We'll have to see how that comes into play. It might make it a little bit weaker. One thing that's really great late game Terran harass, right? Well, actually, I'll say mid-game Terran Harass. Once you get the... Widowmine drops can be pretty good throughout the game, but once you get the Drilling Clouds upgrade and the Ignite Afterburners on the Medivacs, they burrow and shoot so fast, it's insanely difficult for an opponent to get their workers out of the mineral line before the Widowmines get in and do damage. And unlike things like Hellions, Hellbats take 2 shots to kill workers. Marines take a couple shots but attack fast. But all those, if your opponent reacts, you get 1 volley off, right? You land them, they get 1 shot off, but your opponent's already gone after that first shot. You don't really get all the kills. A Widowmine, though, with the 1-second burrow time, that 1 shot will kill all the workers. So Widowmine Harass with the Drilling Claws upgrade is actually really, really awesome. I encourage you guys to play around with that. Late game Terran Harass, Ravens. Ravens, late game, if you get a good number, they beat armies. Their harass is at super long range, so it's almost impossible to really lose units. It's almost a free harass, and it's very effective. You can launch auto turrets, and when units come to reply, you can secret missile them. You can PDD to get past static defense, like photon spores and missile turrets. It's very, very useful, but extremely expensive to get up that Raven flock. But once you get it up, the most devastating harass in the game, I believe. On to the next question. From Mateus R. What do you think is the best Zerg response to a meching Terran now with the tougher and stronger Hellbats in Heart of the Swarm? So, I don't really think... I mean, there's 2 approaches. One approach that sometimes works as Zerg, you do a Doom Roach drop before their mech gets rolling, and you hope they play too greedy, right? If they play too greedy and they're still on, like, 2 factories and you've got, like, 30 roaches with... You just go 2 base or maybe 3, rush to Overlord drop it and roach speed and whatnot. Load all your roaches up, just run on top of their army and drop it right on top of the mech army. And if you significantly out-army size them, that can work. If your opponent, while they're harassing you, if they're paying attention, they'll see that you're doing this, and they'll just make a lot more Hellbats, and even put some missile turrets to blow, or Widowmines to blow up the Overlords as they come in, and they're in a position where if you drop on the Hellbats, they're just going to die. So if they have a decent Hellbat number, the Roach Trap actually can't work. But it's a good tool to throw in there, and you'll win a lot of games with it by catching Terran opponents off guard. But for like a more reliable way to play as the mid-game progresses, Roaches just don't cut anymore. They can't break a Hellbats in front of tanks at all. What you really need to do is tough. I think Swarmos are really the... You got to keep doing Swarmos from weird angles. Support them with a lot of Queens. Queens are actually pretty decent against Hellbats because they got more range than Roaches, more life. They got Transfusion, and they had that long range against Medivac. So it's funny, but Queen slash Swarm Host slash a lot of Spines and Spores is actually pretty darn effective. And then throw in a couple Infestors to try to fungal growth groups of units. And then as you get to late game, add in Vipers and start yanking tanks into your lines. And that can be kind of fun way to play. And then you do a big Ultras switch later in the game, maybe. Because Ultras actually will beat those Hellbats. Ultras are pretty darn good against mech if you can really catch them off guard. Widowmines beat Ultras, but you know, if you've been doing the Swarm Host thing, they probably won't have too many Widowmines. So it's a pretty fun combination. But I'd advise, if you're going to make Roaches, I mean, you got to make some Roaches early so you don't die to Hellbats, but then don't make as few as possible or go all in with the Roaches. You can't use Roaches as staple anti-mech force like you could in Wings of Liberty. So that wraps up the Q&A portion of the show. We'll be on again, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for Ret versus Feast, and directly after that Ret versus Feast match, there'll be the rules of engagement analyzing today's match between Thorzane and Sake. And let me tell you, that was an amazing match. I mean, Thorzane convincingly won that. I'm assuming you guys already watched, right? But it was some amazing games, especially Game 2. I'm really excited to go over that with you guys. So, Ret vs. Feast tomorrow at 5. Right after that, rules of engagement analyzing the Thorzane Sake match. Thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow.